What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So I want to go ahead and continue with this top five NBA single season greatest teams list. As I said before, this is all subjective. There is no right or wrong order. People might have different teams. Some people may have them in different orders. It's just a person's personal preference. Just do a brief recap. At number five, I had the 1971-72 Lakers, who went 69-13 during the regular season. At number four, I had the 1985-86 Boston Celtics, who went 67-15 during the regular season, 40-1 at home during the regular season. And I believe they went 50-1 at home when you include the playoffs as well. At number three, I have the 1982-83 Philadelphia 76ers. All right. This team won 65 games. They went 65-17 during the regular season. And one of the things you got to remember about that era is unlike the 90s and beyond, hell, even the late 80s and beyond, there were fewer teams. So the Sixers weren't just getting a lot of cheap wins against bad teams. So you might say, oh, well, 65 games is a lot, but it's not 72 wins. Well, yeah, but they also didn't have a bunch of teams that were 20-62 or, 19-63 to beat up on. So they played against, and you could argue they played against better quality competition compared to some of the later teams. But anyway, they went 65-17 during the regular season, and they went 12-1 during the postseason. So for the season, that team went 78. No, excuse me. They went 77-18 on the year. 77-18. They averaged 112.1 points per game during the regular season, which is eighth that year. Their opponents averaged 104.4 points per game, which was seventh, meaning that they won by an average of about 7.7 points per game. They were fifth in offensive rating that year, fifth in defensive rating. So, when you look at their overall rankings, it's not quite what you expect. Usually these all-time great teams are number one offensively or number two, number three. So a little bit behind that, but what powered that team was the fact that, look, the Sixers were already a really good team. The Sixers were already a really good team that had made it to the NBA Finals numerous times. 1977, 1980. They went to the Finals in 1982. But one of the problems is that the Sixers were very weak. Well, I'm not going to say very weak, but one of the weak spots for the Sixers was the center position. And oftentimes in the finals, they were going up against a superstar in that position, whether it was Bill Walton or later on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And that always posed a problem. They had some solid players, Caldwell Jones, excuse me, Daryl Dawkins, but not a superstar player. That changed when the Sixers went under new ownership, I believe it was during 1982. And the new owner and the front office wanted a winner, and they went after Moses Malone. They offered him I think Moses was a restricted free agent, and they gave him a crazy offer sheet, which the Rockets, to whom Moses Malone played with at the time, they matched. But ultimately, the Rockets wanted to move on from Moses Malone. So the Sixers sweetened the pot, and he was acquired. And Moses Malone was the difference, man. He was the difference. He made them a super team. That particular year, he won the league MVP. He led the Sixers in scoring. He averaged 24.5 points per game, which was down from the 31.1 points per game that he had averaged the year before, but he had more help. He averaged 15.3 rebounds, which led the NBA. He averaged 1.3 assists, 1.1 steals, 2 blocks per game. He shot 50.1% from the floor and 76.1% from the foul line. Julius Erving, who was the captain of the Sixers and the All-Star Game MVP that year, averaged 21.4 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1.6 steals, 1.8 blocks, 51.7% shooting from the floor, 28.6% from three-point range, which honestly was a little bit better than average back in the early 80s, and 75.9% from the free throw line. Maurice Cheeks, 12.5 points, 6.9 assists, 2.3 steals. In his prime, always amongst the leaders in steals per game. Shot 54% from the floor, 75% from the foul line. Andrew Toney, who was also a forgotten force and had Hall of Fame potential, were not for the foot injury that he suffered. That year averaged 19.7 points, 4.6 rebounds, 2.8 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1 steal, 50% shooting from the floor, 79% from the foul line. Bobby Jones, that year, 9 points, 4.6 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 1.1 steals, 1.1 blocks. When you look at the Sixers, man, as a team, let's look at some of their rankings. The Sixers were a really good defensive team. They were 4th in the NBA in blocks, 5th in steals. They were the number 1 rebounding team in the NBA, averaging almost 48 boards per game. They were 3rd in free throw attempts, top 10 in free throw percentage, 3rd in field goal percentage. 3-point percentage, that's kind of negligible. It didn't really matter back then. The 3-point shot really wasn't that important. But, the Sixers were just a very, very dominant team that year. Moses Malone had promised a championship. As a matter of fact, he predicted that they would go undefeated during the playoffs. And he was off by just 1 game. I believe in the first round. Back then, there was no opening round per se. There was the semifinals. That was the opening round. I think it was the last year of that, by the way, too. But they swept the Knicks 4-0. In the conference finals, they beat the Milwaukee Bucks 4-1. And in the NBA finals, they beat the Lakers 4-0. Moses Malone completely dominated in the finals. The first game, the Sixers beat the Lakers 113-107. In Game 2, they beat the Lakers 103-93. Game 3, 111-94. When the scene shifted to LA, and in Game 4, they finished off the sweep 115-108. Kareem did have 28 points in Game 4, but Moses dominated the boards with 23 rebounds in Game 4. In the finals, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar averaged 23.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.3 blocks. But Moses Malone in the finals was just on a whole nother level. 25.8 points, 18 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks. And he shot 47 free throws in just 4 games. Just totally outmuscled, outworked, outhustled, and outplayed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in that series. Anyway, in my opinion, the third greatest individual team of all time, the '83 Sixers. Tell me what you guys think.